A couple of times every year, a somewhat average or uninspiring game releases, and it has its perception slightly boosted by the critics' promises that it's better with friends. These are the games that are rather boring or bad while playing solo, but are made more entertaining and sometimes even comedic when enjoyed with the company of friends or family. It's a true statement, don't get me wrong, these games do exist, but this claim ignores the fact that many activities in life are bolstered by engaging with them alongside of others. To me, it's not a selling point when a game is said to be more fun when playing with others. It's instead a thinly veiled excuse to prop up a middle-of-the-road title. And for many folks, Mario Golf Super Rush is the next entry to garner this tired praise. I've seen a lot of people talking about how the game is lacking features and content and courses, but that it's not half bad if you bust it out at a party or a social gathering. Now, I personally question the validity of that claim, but regardless, Mario Golf Super Rush disappointed me. This was mostly due to the game's biggest selling point, the Super Rush system, being exciting on paper, but kind of meaningless in execution. The rest of the game also falters with a deficiency in courses, as well as in how each playable character handles. And a few questionable presentational choices also left me wanting more. Basically, I really wanted to like this game, but I just didn't. And now it's time to tell you why. So welcome to my review of Mario Golf Super Rush. I don't play golf in real life, and I've only enjoyed a handful of golf games over the years, like Wii Sports Golf and Golf Story. Still, at its core, Super Rush's golfing mechanics feel pretty solid to me. There's a decent selection of clubs to choose from that will ensure that you never get left empty-handed while out on the range. There's also plenty of environmental obstacles to overcome, such as the usual suspects like water and sand traps, as well as some Mario-themed obstacles like chain chomps. Being able to shape the trajectory of shots was one of my favorite components of the game, as I really loved launching golf balls that acted like a frisbee on crack. There was also ways to adjust your stance to get the shot just right. The only real letdown here in this core gameplay was the super shots, that all acted the same with very little variation between them. When discussing purely the game's actual golfing mechanics, I'd say they're pretty solid, as it's casual enough that anyone can pick up and play, while also including more advanced maneuverability options to ensure complexity for those who want to get super invested. So the mechanics are pretty good, but things begin to fall apart when analyzing the 4 different modes of play. In order to unlock many of the game's courses, you'll first have to complete the Adventure mode, which will take you about 6 hours. It'll start with you creating a Mii and joining up with a cast of Mario C-tier characters to join the golfing circuit. The first 2/3 of this Adventure mode are about introducing the player to the mechanics and the systems gradually. You'll begin by learning how to drive, chip, and putt a ball before being introduced to full courses to test your skills on. These courses start very simple and become more complex as the game goes on, with various obstacles and tough terrains. Now, the early portions of this mode did feel a bit too slow for my taste, as it felt like the game was assuming that I have zero familiarity with golf games, and that's fine, but I would have liked the option to skip a couple of these tutorials. As you move through the various regions of the hub world, you'll unlock new courses to play on, which in turn unlocks them for standard play from the main menu. This was a misstep, as this adventure mode doesn't provide any riveting moments or an interesting story to justify having to complete it. In other words, if someone wants this game for party purposes alone, then asking them to play through 6 hours of solo golf might strike them like a well-driven ball from the fairway. It's not gonna feel good. The game tries to keep things fresh by switching up its modes of play throughout the adventure. For example, you'll participate in Super Rush Golf, Speed Golf, Special Matches, and Best Score matches that each have their own stipulations that you'll have to meet in order to pass. It does help in adding some variety to the adventure mode, but a lot of it does feel like padding. I think this adventure mode could have been cut down to 4 hours and not much would have been lost. The adventure mode also contains some very light RPG elements, as you'll make decisions on how to level up your Mii character and what clubs to bring to each course. In particular, your ability to boost your character's stats is quite interesting, because it's very simple to build an overpowered golfer who will outclass any of the standard golfers on the roster. I'll talk more about this imbalance later, but within the confines of the adventure mode, it was a worthwhile inclusion. Leveling up my character's stats made them a better golfer, which fit perfectly into the narrative being told. And speaking of the narrative, it's kind of a weird one. Like I mentioned earlier, about 2/3 of this story is about your character wanting to become a big league golfer and the trials that he or she must face in order to reach that goal. However, the final third of the game dives headfirst into some mystical bullshit, as you'll talk to a spirit locked away in a statue who tasks you with defeating the Snow King, who's putting the screws to Bowser's castle. After harnessing the power of lightning and fire, you'll team up with Wario and Waluigi to do this, and it culminates with a cool Bowser moment, as he's actually kind of a good guy here. Still, nothing in this story is very interesting, as the dialogue is quite plain and boring. So overall, the story mode is inoffensive at best, and kind of insulting at worst if you simply want to have all courses unlocked from the start. So with the adventure mode wrapped up, we're free to check out the other 3 forms of casual play that you can experience solo or with friends. Much of the disappointment from this title stems from these other modes, as they seem to lack content for the price of admission. Regardless of which mode you're playing, there's only 6 courses to trek through, and that number simply feels too low. Especially considering one of them is a training course that's not meant to challenge you in the slightest. Its inclusion is fine, but it doesn't feel like a worthwhile map when we're given so few in the first place. The courses we do get are also too aesthetically similar, as 4 out of the 6 feature a lot of shades of green. Besides this, you have a pretty standard desert map, and the only visually compelling course, the Bowser map. With how many biomes Mario has traversed over the years, it seems like they could have come up with some pretty memorable courses, such as featuring one in New Donk City. But no, they just went with the bare minimum and they rolled with it, and the game is lesser because of it. So the first of these party modes is just your standard golf with no variation. It's you and up to 3 other friends, or AI, against 18 holes. There's a fair bit of customization, which allows you to play 3, 6, 9, or 18 holes, and you're permitted to start at whichever hole you want, which is nice. You can also adjust your tee-off spot to add more distance for extra challenge. You can also choose from a pretty standard roster of Mario characters, as well as the Mii you use for the campaign. All of these characters control virtually the same, with just a little bit of variation, such as bigger characters like Donkey Kong and Bowser having more power in their swing at the cost of speed. The only playable golfer that breaks this mold is your Mii, who carries over his or her stats from the adventure mode, meaning they're all around the best option every time you play, which is broken. There's a clear advantage to picking this character, and I'm sure it's already pissed off a bunch of players around the world. It's kinda like picking Meta Knight in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It's just not fair. But once you hit the links, everything is par for the course in standard golf. You'll tee off, you escape sand wedges, and you'll sink long putts to guarantee a low score and a chance at winning the match. If you've played any other golf game, you'll feel right at home playing this mode. Perhaps the developers felt they could skimp on the number of courses due to their new Super Rush idea, which is featured heavily in the speed golf mode, because on paper, it sounds pretty cool. I know when I saw the first trailer for this game, I was intrigued simply by this mechanic. It seems so simple. Have players race each other to their balls, allowing them to knock their opponents over while finding a way to incorporate time into golf. It seemed like a slam dunk, and another instance of Nintendo having a "how did no one ever think of that before" kind of idea. At the time it seemed so obvious, but it also felt so clever. I anticipated that this idea would be fully fleshed out and be the defining characteristic of this title. And while that is true, it's not really for the right reasons. Unfortunately, the Super Rush concept seems to be not much more than that. A concept that was thrown in without expanding on it further. They took it as a surface level idea and slapped it onto the game. So now let's break down why it feels so underwhelming. After teeing off, you'll be able to move freely throughout the map, navigating the same obstacles that your ball had to. Along the way, you can pick up coins that slightly boost your super shot meter, but the amount is rather insignificant. You can also grab hearts that replenish your stamina meter. When the meter is in the green zone, you can perform a dash which catapults you across the course at a high speed, while also making you capable of knocking down your opponents. However, you're hardly ever incentivized to go after the other players. They will drop coins when you knock them over, but again, these don't give you enough boost to your supercharge meter to justify the time spent collecting them. Then of course, there's the fact that time plays a role in your overall score, meaning that beelining it directly to your ball is always the best course of action. This makes every match devolve into you tactically using your stamina bar and heart pickups to reach the ball faster than anyone else in the competition. And to make matters worse, some of the characters' dashes include a jump that will see you leapfrogging heart pickups, which is always super frustrating. Outside of hitting your ball into penalty areas, you'll almost always be ahead of the others, at least while playing against the computers. This is true even with the handicap that allows players with lower scores to tee off earlier than the rest. It's just not hard to catch up. So for me, the Super Rush concept didn't work out as intended. It was a fine inclusion, but the game really needed more to prop it up. This mechanic simply isn't strong enough to hold up a game that's already on the fringe of average. By far though, the game mode that disappointed me the most was Battle Golf. After seeing this shown off in the opening cutscene, I thought it would be something magnificent, something really cool, and an awesome twist on golf. But no, it's set in a cool arena, but the action here is far from stellar. This mode pits you against 3 other players as you all try to be the first to capture 3 flags by sinking 3 shots. You can choose from 2 maps with the option to turn on or off hazards that are meant to shake things up. The simpler map is far too easy, so playing on the second one is the only one worth a damn. The modifiers also don't even end up being relevant most of the time because matches often end before they really get a chance to activate. Most of the matches I played while testing in this mode ended in 3 minutes or less, and I won nearly every single match against the computers, although this was true for all the modes of play. And I should mention that I spent a lot of time looking for a way to increase the difficulty of the computer AI, but I never did find it. And a quick Google search revealed that increasing and decreasing difficulty is just not a feature in this game, and I have no clue why. It seems like a no-brainer inclusion that's just been left out for no good reason. It made moments like this, where I actively watched the computer miss on purpose, feel pathetic, like I had wasted my money buying this game. Anyway, this short section on Battle Golf has probably already gone on longer than a typical match. Of all the modes in the game, this is the one that truly requires friends and family to enjoy. Playing it solo was so boring, and I have no urge to go back for more. And in fact, that's something I can sadly say about the game as a whole. Alright, so let's briefly talk about the presentation of Mario Golf Super Rush before wrapping this video up. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, I expected this game to look a little bit better than it did. The Switch is really starting to show its age, especially in a world where PS5s and Xbox Series X's are roaming about. The golf courses themselves look fine, but the hub worlds in the adventure mode were quite small and lacked anything close to a wow factor. Of course, even some of the courses aren't without their issues, such as these ugly textures found on Bowser's course. I'll also mention that as I played, the colors were oversaturated, but I noticed it's not really coming through in my recorded footage. I'm not sure why it didn't record that way, but the visuals I got on my TV screen were borderline unplayable, especially on courses featuring heavy amounts of green, which is basically all of them. Perhaps this was simply the fault of my TV, but I didn't notice it while playing any other games on Switch or PS5, so if you had this issue, please let me know in the comments below. My other main issue with the presentation of Super Rush comes down to the character models and how they are animated. First of all, Daisy is horrifying in this game. Those eyes look like they're about to suck out my soul and trap it in this painfully average game for the rest of time. The animations for all characters are a little wonky and rigid and needed more work to appear less animatronic. This is most noticeable after finishing a hole, as the characters always do the same few poses and it just doesn't look great. They're all too simple, and I would have liked to have seen more over-the-top reactions from this iconic cast of characters. And the final thing I'll comment on in this section is the HUD and UI, which I felt were handled pretty well. The menus were easy to navigate, and important information was always displayed. My gripe here though comes when you reach the green on any given hole. The game projects this terrain simulator over top the green to show off the different levels of elevation, but it all blends together too much, making it hard to read. Over the 12 hours I spent with this game, I never got a good feel on how to putt with precision and accuracy. This was due to the oversaturation I mentioned a moment ago, along with this guiding grid. It was the perfect combo for obstructing my vision, preventing me from getting better. So overall, the lack of polish in this game surprised me, especially for a Nintendo-made game. There were just too many stumbles to ignore. Mario Golf Super Rush is a competent golf game to bore your party guests with before you all decide to jump over to something more fun, like Mario Kart 8. Playing it solo is even worse, as the underwhelming presentation, weird story mode, and small number of courses will leave you bored and regretting your purchase rather quickly. And the game's namesake, Super Rush, ends up adding very little to the core golf experience, making it one of the few times in recent memory where Nintendo struck out with a new idea. It's nice to see their continued efforts towards reinvigorating existing franchises with new mechanics and concepts, but it simply didn't work out in this case. Mario Golf Super Rush is not worth your time, and it's certainly not par for the course. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out my review of Mario Golf Super Rush. By the way, I don't know if I actually said this in the video, but this was one of the hardest game titles of the year to actually memorize, because I kept confusing it between Mario Golf Super Rush and Super Mario Golf Rush. But yeah, it's definitely Mario Golf Super Rush. Anyway, it was kind of tricky, but if you enjoyed this video, consider checking out some of my other reviews and critiques. If you're a fan of Nintendo's, you probably like Pokemon as well, and trust me, I have plenty of content on the channel relating to that. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, or a dislike if you hated it. Consider subscribing for more, follow me on Twitter @NopeNapNarp, and as always guys, have a nice day, and take care.